Hey, sports fans, Larry to Run Blog Run. It's Athletics Chat 59, your favorite programming of the week. In the middle of the screen is Stuart Weir. He is in Gateshead, England, and he just showed me his river. That's on one side is Gateshead, and one side is Newcastle. You see? Look at that. And there's actually salmon in that river, kind of cool. Good to see you, my friend.
Hello. Yeah. I am at my third meet in a month. I'm also at my third meet in 15 months.
Wow. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? So which ones did you go to? You went to the British Champs?
Well, I've been to Gateshead twice. Now, just let me explain this. Gateshead the first time was Rabat.
Okay. Yeah.
This time, Gateshead is the London Anniversary Games.
Okay.
And I went to the British Champs in Manchester. So
you probably had Middle Eastern food during the one in Rabat, and then you've had, bangers and mash, you'll have something like that or fish and chips.
If the truth be known, I've had no food at all in this hotel because they're really not serving any except during about a 1 hour. It's still chaos because of the COVID situation.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's just it's strange over here where we're at right now in California. People wear masks inside buildings and offices and stuff, but most of the time you're not seeing people with masks. Some, it's strange. And other parts of the country, Oregon, Washington, were a little strange last month too. So we're just kind of, but we've got a lot to catch up on because our last one was about 2 weeks ago, and we were. I'd like you to kind of probably begin with some deep thoughts on the British trials and what you thought they accomplished.
Yeah, I mean there were not a lot of shocks. One that I missed at the time when I was writing is that Laura Whiteman did not get selected. She was sort of recovering from injury, but she felt she had done enough. But in fact, she didn't get selected, and she could have done because they left places open. But I mean, there were some outstanding races. I mean, I thought the comparison between the women's 800 in the US trials and in the British trials was fascinating because you're basically talking about athletes of more or less the same standard. In the US one, they went round in something like 55, 56 seconds in the first lap. In the British one, it was 62 seconds.
Wow.
Because Gemma Reekie was leading, and Gemma Reekie said afterwards, it was not my plan to lead. I did not want to lead. And so I was waiting for somebody to overtake me, but nobody did. So they sort of crawled around a lap and a half, and then Laura Muir took off, and then Gemma overtook Laura, and then Keely Hodkinson overtook both of them, which under our system meant that Keely and Gemma got automatically selected, and Laura got the third discretionary place. But then a week later, Laura decided to withdraw from that, thinking that simply running the 1500 was her best medal chance, and to do the 800 was a distraction. And Alexandra Bell suddenly found that a week after the trials, she was going to the Olympics after all.
Wow. Wow.
I think that's about it. There was a little bit of controversy that Mark Pierce in the steeplechase, who had run back-to-back PRs, but was just outside, actually won the trials, but was just outside the Olympic qualifying time, but got a World Athletics invitation. And British Athletics decided not to accept it because he didn't meet their criteria, was the official answer. And so that's, apart from that, there was very little controversy. I mean, there was the strange situation in the 200 meters where Zarnell Hughes false started, which of course in your situation would have scuppered him, but he was given the discretionary place. And then there was Dean Asher Smith stopping the clock at 10:71, and then 5 seconds later it changed to 10:97. A bit of a difference. But fortunately, Getty's managed to get a picture of her standing in front of 10:71 the day she didn't run it. I mean, you just wonder how on earth that had happened. I mean, it's nearly as farcical as that steeplechase we were watching, where they rang the bell with 2 laps to go and completely confused the athletes.
Oh my gosh! What a mess that was.
I think sometimes, Larry, we must do something on the great disasters. I mean, I don't know where you were at Manchester, but that night that Jess Ennis broke the world record in the rarely run 100 meters hurdles with only 9 hurdles.
Yes. We got a good chuckle about that. I think that would be a perfect athletics chat. We can put a few together. Were you surprised with Laura Muir's later on national record?
No. I think she is a phenomenal athlete, and I think she's also a very clever athlete. I mean, she's a qualified vet and all that.
Yeah.
And I just think she pragmatically just looked at the times that other people were running in the 800 and thought, I don't think that if the girl who won the US trial, whose name I've forgotten, the 800, women's 800.
Oh, yes, Anthony Mew.
Yeah, that if she runs a 155 or something, and I mean, there are several people who run 157s. I think Laura is probably thinking, I'm probably not going to get a medal if it's a race like that. Whereas in the 1500, that's my stronger event. I have a lot more experience, and I can see a medal there.
A good comparison between Athing and between Laura. Athing is, I think, a brilliant talent with that 49-second speed. She's doing it from the other end in the 800. The Seb Coe approach. Big 400 speed, and then our 1500 going down to the 800, and you don't know which is better, because I think each has its reasoning. I think Laura can go faster than 156, but I also think it's really smart for her not to double. Tokyo is going to be brutal, and we just don't know what surprises are going to happen with the pandemic. And so those are issues as well. Yeah. And it's something that I think we're going to have to it's going to be very things are going to just be very fluid. And
there's something that Andy Young, the Laura and Gemma's coach, said to me earlier this year when Gemma won in Liévin. He said he didn't run a very clever race, but I was pleased to see her not panic and win and learn to win a different way. And I thought that's an interesting concept, particularly when you go into a championship race with no pacemaker.
Yeah.
The Olympic final could be a 62-second opening lap, probably not, but it could be a 55-second opening lap. And you have got to be able to deal with whatever happens and to be in the position to run the best for you. Undoubtedly, an athlete will have a preference as to how the race will go, but you can't control that.
Yeah. No, I think that's I think that's well said. I've heard from athletes as varied as your Ian Stewart that the challenges for athletes who race in the Diamond League is developing racing skills.
Yeah.
Well, they just ran Timothy Chariot in that 1500. The pacemaker, Eric Zawinski, took him through 1 minute 50 at the 800. And so people are just hanging on for dear life. And that's a big difference than, running the first half in 2 minutes in a 1500 at a championship and then coming back at 146, and so it's a racing is a skill set, and that's what Andy Young's been developing with his athletes, which you think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, that's what in our women's 800, what was interesting for me was Athing did what she always does, which is up front, but Ajay Wilson stayed off the back, and the biggest rush to the finish was Raven Rogers, exactly what she did in Doha. And that is how you take people out in a championship, And so I think right now it's on the men's and women's side in the 800. The Brits and the Americans have really talented 800 runners.
Yeah.
And then you've got our friends in Kenya and in Uganda, and so it's going to be a very interesting 800 in Tokyo. And there'll be some surprises. There always are in every event, but I think the 800s could be, and then with now Nigel Emos waking up again like he does every 3 to 4 years and running a couple fast races, and people forget that he's an Olympic silver medalist, and that the guy's run 41.7, and and he sure looked capable of doing it the other night. So it just was. And then you wanted to talk about one of our favorite meets of all times, Monaco.
Yeah.
And talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, it was interesting to see. Let's start with the women's 200, where interestingly, Shelley Ann lost for the second time in a week, at having lost 100 to Elaine. She seemed to have the 200 in control, but then just didn't manage to keep it going right to the finish. And so, first of all, Talu overtake her, and then Shawnee Miller-Weeble. And I understand that Shawnee is entered in the 200 and the 400, but has still not entirely made up her mind whether she's going to do one, and if so, which one, or whether she is going to attempt to do both, which, as I understand it, would require her to run a final of one and a prelim of the other on the same day, which is quite an interesting thing to be doing. Yeah, I mean, the Timothy Chariot race was interesting, and as things stand at the moment, he's not going to the Olympics.
Yeah.
I mean, interestingly, I'm speaking on the day of the presser at Gateshead, and Jake Whiteman said he still doesn't believe it. He still expects a way to be found for Timothy to be on the start line in Kenya, in Tokyo. And interesting, what Jake said was, I'm in two minds about it, because selfishly, I hope he doesn't come, because it increases my chances. But equally, it'd be a kind of a hollow victory for somebody if the best in the world isn't there.
Yeah, no, I think that's and there's a controversy in Kenya right now anyway, because the one of the athletes that's in the top three in the 1500, I believe, hasn't been in the testing pool long enough for the AIU to allow them to make the team. So I'm not, and that's developed, and that's happened now twice in the last year. Justin Legatt put a piece up about that recently. So it seems like there's a window, but Athletics Kenya is one of the strangest organizations. In strange is a gentle word to use in terms of being involved with global sport. And there's a lot of times that I'm not sure athletes have been looked out for as well as they could be. And that's difficult.
I have argued this before. I think that not having Kenny Harrison, the world record holder in Rio, and not having Omar McLeod in Tokyo, that there ought to be a small number of wild cards given for the sake of the integrity of the event and the sake of the spectators, because not that anyone can do. If I'm buying a ticket to see one of those events, I want to see the best in the world going head to head. I don't want somebody who happened to have a bad day at their trials, or in some countries, let's face it, has fallen foul of the politics in their governing body, to be excluded from the Olympics. And I mean, surely, even when the team is selected, if Kenny Harrison goes out and breaks the world record, there ought to be a way of the Olympic movement, World Athletics saying, look, we got to give an invitation to this person, even if it does mean America have got 4 runners, because you want the world record holder a month before the Olympics to be out there competing. But they don't seem to listen to me.
Yeah, it's most unfortunate, because I think we could solve many of their problems. What else from Monaco was exciting for you?
Well, again, we had a really fast women's 800. I mean, I think the women's 800 is going to be one of the standout events. It'll be really, that's one I'm really looking forward to seeing, and, well, dare I say it, hoping that I get a ticket for, because of the chaos in Tokyo. But
women's 1500 I thought was pretty spectacular. I mean, you've been cheering on Faith Kipchoge all season. And she's a tremendous athlete. And last summer we cracked up about how she began running 800s for the first time since 2015 and pops a 157, and then she does that great 1,000. But she ran a perfect race in Monaco. And you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, actually, funny enough, just before we do that Sean Ingalls of The Guardian actually put on social media, Faith will be the favorite for the 1500 in Tokyo. And come to think of it, she would also be the favorite for the 800 if she'd been entered. Well, I think what many of us just cannot believe the talent of Sifan Hassan. And when Sifan Hassan had a lead over Faith, on the last lap, you're just thinking there's no way that Faith is going to stay with her. But not only did she stay with her, but she overtook her and ran away from her. And actually didn't get the world record, but she sure gave it a fright. And the world record, which certainly you and I will both remember seeing in Monaco, whatever number of years ago, from Muzdababa.
I think it was 2015. Because I was back and looking in my notes, and what I also put on my notes is that Sifan had taken second in that race. She had run a 3:56, I believe, and she was just dumbfounded that she could get destroyed by Gonzaga that much, and the ironic thing is Chanel Price was also the pacemaker in that race as well. And it was the thing about Monaco is, you and I know, it's almost near perfect conditions. You're close enough to the Mediterranean that you're getting a nice cool wind coming in.
Yes.
It's bringing the humidity down. So by the time the big distance races go between 8:30 and 10, it's rather cool. And the fields that they put together, Stuart, I was writing about this last night, that we both know that it's always the last meet before either an Olympics, World Championship, or Olympic Championships. And then there's always that little break before the global will start. And so a lot of people, you get the Europeans, the Kenyans, and the Americans all there. And they really get tremendous fields. And, I went field by field, and I'm just kind of going, my gosh, this is pretty amazing.
I've never been a distance runner, but Natoya Goul says that the shape of the oval is a little bit different from most, and the bends are less tight. So therefore, it's easier to run a fast bend in Monaco than in some other tracks. And she thinks that contributes.
Yeah, no, I think so too. It's just, it's with 1,000 fans there, probably our biggest, the biggest number of fans we'll see anywhere all season. Because we're sure not going to see them in Tokyo. It's going to be a challenge, And
just talking of fans in Tokyo, there's a great line today when Jeff Whiteman was asked, "What's it like calling your son at the Olympics?" He said, "Well, I've been doing it since the school sports. The only difference is there were more fans at the school sports."
That's true. That's true. What's the feeling in the UK right now about the Olympics? Are people excited about it? Is there worry about it? Is it a combination of things?
Well, I just don't know how much it's on people's radar at the moment because no one's allowed to go unless you're accredited. So in that sense, it's not talked about. We've just had the European Soccer Championships, which got massive TV audiences and so on. The fact that the Olympics also time-wise is not great for watching in the UK. And most of the year it's been on, it's been off, it's been on, it's been off. So I just don't think, other than the real track and field fans, that it's quite got the kind of publicity that it normally would. And I think, and I'm afraid I would be in this category as well, I think most people here think it was a mistake to go ahead with it. I'm going saying that, but I just think that it'll be interesting to see what the COVID outcome is from the games, and what kind of an experience will be for athletes.
When do you head over to Tokyo?
I leave England on the 23rd, arrive on the 24th, and then spend the next 3.5 days in my hotel room in solitary confinement. And then I'm allowed out under supervision.
How do you get meals? Do you have to order them early?
Well, it's interesting because the hotel that I'm staying in doesn't normally have a restaurant, but there's something in the small print that says that the Olympic Committee is working with such hotels to find ways of providing meals. But again, I'm supposed to test myself on each of the first 3 days and deliver the test to a collection point. But I'm not allowed to leave the hotel. I'm not quite sure how I do that. So there's all sorts of things that are very unclear. And I mean, I got an email today from the British Olympic Association saying we would advise everyone to bring hard copies on paper of all the documentation you're required to have, because we're not convinced that the phone apps that they want it on are going to work satisfactorily.
Wow.
And certainly I'm having difficulty downloading the apps and getting them to work.
Yeah. No,
So I think there's an awful lot going on there. And I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. Perhaps once it happens that people will really get engaged with it. Because England have been successful in this soccer European Championship, that has probably taken that's occupied most people's attention up until now.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, now I have got an exclusive which I can reveal on this program. Today, I was speaking to Sandy Morris.
Oh, really?
And she's thinking of getting goats. I said to her,
"Wow,
that will ruin your reputation because you're an exotic creatures person."
Yeah,
but
she said all those reptiles.
She fancies having a few goats and possibly a couple of alpacas.
Good
so you
her.
You heard it first on this program.
Did she get her polls yet from Newark, New Jersey?
The good news is that they are, I believe, in Brussels.
That's very good news. That's very good news, because I know I would like to see her get a good competition in.
Yeah.
Katie Naja, is Katie there too in Gateshead?
Well, she pulled out.
Oh.
She just texted me to say that she decided to go back to the States after Monaco.
Okay.
So it was to be an incredibly strong field, but actually there's now, I think, only Sandy and Holly of the people.
So Dina has pulled out. Can you give us the updates on athletes who are not competing, and then tell us who is competing?
Those are the big two pullouts. I think compared to normal, it'll be quite a weak field, because a lot of people are just not traveling at this time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that the British team are traveling to Yokohama for their holding camp, sort of a suburb of Tokyo, later this week. And, the instruction to the media is that you should semi-isolate for days before you go. So I think that has discouraged athletes from traveling, and particularly traveling to and from the UK has not been easy. So I think quite a lot of international athletes have just thought, look, I don't need another competition so close to Tokyo. So, I think, but looking at it positively, there's an awful lot of British athletes who are going to get a chance to run at Gateshead this week, and that is a good thing. But I don't think we will see world records in the way we have previously at the anniversary games. But I just think that it's that's the way of it. I mean, I found actually today, talking to about 10 athletes, it's an odd atmosphere, because there are some people who are going to their first Olympics and are so excited. There are other people all year thought they were going to the Olympics, and then just something went wrong at trials and they're not going. And they're now competing as much as they can to try and make a bit of money, having lost out on the Olympics. So I think there's that going on. Olympic teams are settled, so there isn't the excitement there was last time of people getting in fast races and hoping that they can get a qualifying time and so on. But again, it's happening. We have to remember that there was no major meetings last year in Britain, and we've had 2 this year. So that's a good thing. But I don't think this will be one of the great ones. There's the famous Emsley Car Mile being run.
Yes.
But
Yes.
with almost exclusively a British field.
Yeah.
Jeff pointed out to Jake that he has the unique distinction of having won the race and also finished last in it.
Only a father can do. Yeah.
To be fair, I think he was 19 at the time, and he was a junior, and just got a lane at the last minute and finished last.
Yes,
but as he pointed out, there is no evidence of that, because even if you watch the film of the race, he's so far behind that you don't see him.
Yeah. Well, Jake does have a good sense of humor, and kind of keeps it like that. Let's see. What's the? Let's talk about Shikari.
Yeah.
And your thoughts there.
Well, she's broken the rules and she's got banned. I think it's a shame. You know, she was going through a bit of a trauma, and she chose to deal with it by having cannabis.
Yeah.
If she had gone out and got herself blind drunk, it would have been just as stupid, but you'd have got away with it. I mean,
it's frustrating. Here's what I've heard from various sources in the U.S. There was a couple pretty good articles by Alan Abrahamson.
Yes.
Who tends to show up, but Alan comes to the U.S. champs each year. He comes to some of the major meetings, and he always gets me to think. Mm-hmm. He infuriates some people, but I think that he put it in perspective. Typically, as journalists, we get about half the story, which is more than most people get, and we have to put in. We realize that part of the story is what we know, and then there's parts that we don't know. Yeah. What we know is that Shikari tested positive for cannabis. What I understand is that the water rule is cannabis in the 24 hours before your competition is the issue. But what I also realize is USA Track and Field and the USOPC got involved, so that what would have been could have been a 4-year, then a 2-year, then a 4-month became a month. And yes, technically she was available to compete in the 4x1. It seems to me, with the decisions made by the coaching staff, was that they felt that rules are rules, which is what the President of the United States said too when asked about it. He said he would hope that they would revisit the rule, but the rules are rules. And I'm pretty sure that's what the answer was from the USOPC as well as USA Track and Field. In reading into what Ronaldo Nehemiah said, I think that Ronaldo wasn't as concerned about her making the 4x100 squad, because I think there was a way. I think he was more concerned about what's going on with Shikari. And what's going on with Shikari is that she just had a very traumatic event in her life. I don't know the level of the relationship she had with her mother, her birth mother. Mm-hmm. I do believe that the grandmother raised her. Mm-hmm. I think Shikari is a very colorful person. Mm-hmm. We loved the way she answered the British media a few weeks ago. And that was some of my favorite stuff of the season. Yeah. And I want to see her back and healthy. Would I have liked to see her in Tokyo? Yeah. And just like you said, without Omar McLeod, without a few of the other athletes, I think in the 100, I think that she was a game changer. And
but I mean,
think she'll be missed.
the question I have, and I don't know the answer, so I'm throwing it to you, Master, who knows all the answers.
Sure.
The reason that we ban drugs is to create a level playing field.
Correct.
If the drug is not performance enhancing, should it be on the list?
Well, that's the good question. As I about a year ago, I wrote that when one smokes marijuana or takes a marijuana edible, afterwards you don't want to try to jump 7 feet or run a 30-minute 10K. You want to take a nap and have something to eat, and that is still, in my life experience, true. However, what I'm understanding is the reason why WADA had it on there still is because they believe it could be a masking agent. And for example, one of the drugs I take for my heart is called furosemide. And what it does is it reduces the amount of water in my body, specifically water in my heart, which happens to people who have had heart surgery. It is also on the banned list. So, if I got back into, running the 10,000, I'd have to declare it. But it's a masking agent, and the reason being because when you take furosemide, you better have a bathroom very close. You're going to be visiting the restroom almost constantly. So what it does is it helps. So someone was taking something that they didn't want to be found in their system. It's a great way to clear it out. And it's those the level of bizarreness that goes into drug testing, which we will sometime, our drug taking and the rationalization, which we will sometime discuss. But sometimes it's a bit too depressing. I think in this case, I'm pretty sure Sha'Carri was all about in pain, in dealing with the pain. And I think what Ronaldo, her agent's trying to help her do is find more positive ways to deal with that. And we wish her the best. I'm confident that we will see her back in the sport. I think she's a tremendous talent and one of these wonderful personalities that we need. We've got some characters, we've got the Sandy Morrises and we've got the Katie Najats and we've got the, Laura Muir's got a wonderful sense of humor. But she, she's a little, she's kind of quiet sometimes. And there's Valerie Adams. So glad to see Valerie back. Gosh, someone, she's just thrown her best since becoming a mom. And it'd be really cool.
Let me come back at you on two things, one more serious than the other. In Monaco, actually, Laura was asked, what part of your racing would you like to improve? And she said, I'd like to run faster.
Yep. That's a good one. That's the good one, my friend.
I would just like to say a word about Brianna McNeil.
Yes.
She was a little bit silly changing dates on documents, but what her mental state was at the time.
Yeah.
A 5-year ban for somebody who's never tested positive for anything and that there is no suggestion that she has does seem to me to be unbelievably harsh. Particularly if she had just accepted the missed test, it wouldn't actually have done her any harm.
Yeah, I think that the late James Dunaway, who was our editor at American Track and Field, his big concern about athletics integrity, about the way WADA and USADA was that they took themselves too seriously sometimes. I applaud the job they do, but I also think that we need what you and I call an ombudsman. They need someone who is outside of it, who can come in and say, yeah, you guys have really stepped the line. And we don't have that. And I encourage Lord Coe to think about that, because what my worry is that we're going to get several of these things that are confusing so much to the fans and the media that it takes away from how drug testing is done, you know?
Yeah.
So we're going to be able to see you. We'll be able to chat next Monday.
Yeah.
On the 19th, kind friend, correct?
Yes.
All right. This is, we've survived another episode of Athletics Chat 59. I'm getting a little bit of hay fever back here right now. But great seeing you. Good luck enjoy the meeting tomorrow. And I will be posting your reports.
Yes. Good. Okay.
Right. This is Larry Eder with Athletics Chat number 59. Thanks to Stuart Weir. Thanks to Mike Deering, who's managing all the production for us. And have a great day. Talk to you soon. Well, hello, sports fans. Larry Eder, RunBlogRun. This is the epilogue for Athletics Chat number 59. Stuart is in Gateshead, England, right across the river from Newcastle. He will be at the second Diamond League held in Gateshead this year due to the complexities of the pandemic. The first one, as you recall, opened the Diamond League season and was to replace the Rabat, Morocco meet. This one replaces the London Anniversary Games because the group that manages the Queen's Olympic Stadium felt that spending $3.5 million to fix the stadium up for 1 or 2 days of track and field was a bit much. So then they offered British Athletics 1.5 million, I think, US dollars. Let's just say a lot of money to move the meet to Gateshead. So British Athletics was able to move the meet to Gateshead. And the challenge is that this will be the last major meeting before the Olympics. And a lot of athletes have pulled out. Safan Hassan, Dina Asher-Smith, Katie Nagiat, but there's going to be some fine athletes competing there, including Sandy Morris, the Elmsley Car Mile, which dates back to 1953, I believe. And it was done by a family, a newspaper family. And Mr. Carr was a mile enthusiast. And the book that they have where people sign when you're a winner has virtually every major miler of the last, oh my gosh, almost 70 years now. And it's just some great names in there. Gordon Perry, Ian Stewart and his brother, Hikam El Garouge, many of the major Kenyans, Jake Whiteman. So it's an interesting crowd, and it'll be almost an all British event this year, unfortunately, but it'll be fun. So make sure you watch that. Over the last weekend, we had the Hercules Monaco meeting, which is always one of our favorites, and highlights were, oh gosh, there were several. The women's 200 meters where Shawnee Miller-Weibo caught, Shelly Ann Fraser-Price literally at the line in Marie-Jose Talou. Was an exciting race. The men's 100 with Ronnie Baker winning and Trayvon Bromell in fifth caused a bit of surprise, but I'm not sure Trayvon is really on European time. Karsten Warholm, in his first appearance since his world record of 46.70 in the 400-meter hurdles, ran 47.08, pretty impressive. And Mr. Dos Santos, the Brazilian, who was in second, continues to impress. And I think that he is in the hunt for at least the bronze medal. That 400 hurdles in Tokyo with Ray Benjamin, with Karsten Warholm, with several other top athletes is going to be, again, a highlight. The women's 800 with what was quite impressive as well. The women's 1500, where Faith Kipyegon ran 3:51.07, pulling away from Safan Hassan, with about 50 meters to go was very, very exciting. I think everybody thought Sifan was someone no one could beat. So that 1500 in Tokyo, as Sean Engel said of The Guardian, Faith Kipchoge goes in as the favorite. Laura Muir ran a 156.73, a new Scottish record. Gemma Reiki 156.93, and then Kate Grace, the American 157.20. That's Kate's third PB in 3 races, which is pretty exciting considering she had kind of moved away from the 800 for the last 4 or 5 years, and she's really rediscovered it, and she's looking great. I think the women's 800 is going to be out of this world in Tokyo. Athing Mu, you've got Gemma Reiki. It's going to be a real battle. And, Ajay Wilson, Raven Rogers. Raven at our trials looked fantastic. So it'll be interesting to see, kind of what comes up. We're about 3 weeks away from the Olympics. There's still a bit of confusion. Media are going to hotels right now that don't have food production, but the IOC is going to help get that done. In the first 3 days when they arrive, they're in quarantine for 3.5 days, and they're supposed to go get tested each day. But how do they do that? Where do they go? And the British Athletics has asked people to bring paper copies of all of their paperwork because they're not sure if the apps are going to work, which can happen too. So it's going to be a challenge over there. I am not going, and neither is David Hunter or my brother Brian, who's joined me in London and Rio. And the reason being, well, several reasons, but the biggest one is my concern about my health. And Stuart Weir will be there. We'll have several photographers and several writers there as well. So you'll be seeing remote coverage from us, but also live coverage. I just won't be managing the live coverage. So we'll be managing all the remote things and giving you a lot of excitement and behind the scenes things like we did in Eugene. So I think that our coverage will be robust, but it's going to be a challenge for everybody. We'll start updating you shortly, but this is end of epilogue for Athletics Chat number 59. Thank you again for watching our programming, and thank you to Mike Deering, the production manager of our Zoom videos. He's been doing this since 2010, and we've done just about 2,500 videos, and we've got a ton of audio too. So we try to cover it in a lot of ways for you guys. So thank you again. Thanks for watching this, and stay safe.